People say Christmas is the most magical time of the year. They talk about the warmth, the lights, and the joy. But ever since that night in the mountains, I can't look at a string of Christmas lights without feeling my throat close up. Not after the police found me trapped inside a house that had been wrapped so tight in electrical wire that the doors wouldn't open. What I saw in the reflection of those glass walls still keeps me awake. And the worst part? I still don't know how he got on the roof so fast. My name is Elias, and this happened 2 years ago when I was 22. I was a broke college student, so when my wealthy aunt asked me to house-sit her cabin in the Cascade Mountains for a week over Christmas break, I said yes immediately. She offered to pay me $500 just to water her plants and make sure the pipes didn't freeze. It sounded like the easiest money of my life. The cabin wasn't really a cabin in the traditional sense. It was one of those ultra-modern, rich people houses. It was basically a giant glass box sitting in the middle of the woods. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sharp angles, and smart home everything. In the daytime, it was beautiful. You could see the snow-covered pines for miles. But at night, those windows turned into mirrors. When the lights were on inside, you couldn't see anything out there. You were just on display for whoever, or whatever, was watching from the tree line. It was my third night there. December 23rd. A heavy blizzard had rolled in around noon, and by 6 p.m., the roads were completely buried. I was officially snowed in. I didn't mind at first. I had a freezer full of expensive steaks, a fast internet connection, and the whole place to myself. I was in the kitchen heating up some leftover pasta, scrolling through my phone. The house was dead silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the wind howling against the glass. Then, the Wi-Fi cut out. I groaned and looked at the router blinking red. I waited a few seconds, hoping it would reset, but then the lights in the kitchen flickered. They didn't go out, they just dimmed for a second, like something massive had just drawn a huge amount of power from the grid. That's when I heard it. Thump. It wasn't a knock. It sounded like a heavy, wet sandbag hitting the front door. I froze, my fork hovering halfway to my mouth. I stayed perfectly still, listening. We were miles from the nearest town. My aunt's driveway was a quarter-mile long and steep. No car could make it up here in this storm. I put the fork down slowly and walked into the living room. Through the glass walls, all I could see was my own reflection staring back at me against the blackness outside. I walked to the front door and turned on the porch light. I unlocked the deadbolt and cracked the door open, keeping the chain on. There was no one there. The wind whipped snow into my face, stinging my eyes. I was about to close it, thinking it was just a falling branch, when I looked down. Sitting perfectly in the center of the welcome mat was a box. It was about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in shiny, metallic green paper with a perfect red bow. It looked pristine. There was no snow on it at all. I looked past the box, scanning the driveway. This is the part that made my stomach drop. The snow on the porch and the driveway was smooth, completely untouched. There were no footprints leading up to the door and no footprints leading away. It was physically impossible, unless someone had placed it there hours ago before the snow started. But I had been in the living room all day. I would have seen them. A cold feeling, colder than the wind, washed over me. I shouldn't have touched it, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. I undid the chain, grabbed the box, and slammed the door shut. I locked the deadbolt, the handle lock, and even the privacy latch. I took the box to the kitchen island. The wrapping paper felt thick, expensive. I tore it off. Inside was a plain white cardboard box. I lifted the lid. There was only one thing inside, a Polaroid picture. I picked it up, and my blood ran cold. The photo was of me. It showed me standing in the kitchen, holding my plate of pasta, looking at my phone. I was wearing the exact same gray hoodie I had on right now. I flipped the photo over. On the back, written in thick black marker, were 2 words. Nice list. I looked at the timestamp on the bottom of the photo. It was taken 7 minutes ago. I dropped the photo like it burned me. The angle of the shot, it was taken from the backyard, directly through the kitchen window. I instinctively looked up at the glass wall in front of me. The blinds were open. I was standing in a brightly lit fishbowl, and whoever took this picture was standing in the dark, watching me right now. Panic kicked in. I scrambled for the wall panel that controlled the smart blinds. I mashed the close all button. A mechanical whirring sound started. The blinds on the far left window began to lower slowly. But the ones in the kitchen, the ones right in front of me, didn't move. Whir click. They were jammed. Come on, I whispered, hitting the button again. Whir click. Nothing. I was exposed. I grabbed a steak knife from the counter. A pathetic weapon, I know, but it was all I had. I backed out of the kitchen, moving into the hallway where there were no windows. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I needed to see him before he saw me. I crept toward the back sliding door. The motion sensor floodlights were off, which meant nobody was currently in the backyard. I took a deep breath and stepped up to the glass, peering out into the swirling snow. Click! The floodlights blasted on. My breath hitched. Standing at the very edge of the light, right where the forest met the lawn, was a figure. It was a man. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 4 inches. He was wearing a Santa suit, but it was all wrong. The red velvet was faded to a dirty, rusty color, and the pants were torn at the ankles, dragging in the snow. It looked 2 sizes too big for him, hanging off his frame like loose skin. He wasn't looking at me. He was facing the house, but his head was tilted all the way back, staring up at the roof. In his right hand, he held a staple gun. In his left, he was gripping a massive, tangled ball of Christmas lights that looked like a nest of black snakes. "Hey!" I shouted through the glass, trying to sound tougher than I felt. "Get out of here. I'm calling the police." The man didn't flinch. He didn't even look down. Slowly, he raised his hand and gave a little wave. But he wasn't waving at me. He was waving at the house. Then he moved. He didn't run away. He sprinted to the left, disappearing into the darkness around the side of the house. I scrambled backward, gripping the knife. What the hell? Then I heard it. Thwack! The sound came from the exterior wall, just to my right. Thwack! 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 It was the sound of the staple gun. Fast, rhythmic, aggressive. He wasn't trying to break in. He was doing something to the outside of the walls. I ran to the front door. My car keys were in my pocket. I just needed to get to my Jeep. I unlocked the deadbolt and grabbed the handle. I pushed. The door didn't move. I pushed harder, throwing my shoulder into it. It moved maybe a fraction of an inch, then stopped dead with a metallic clank. I peered through the thin crack I had managed to open. I couldn't see much, but I saw a thick green wire wrapped tightly around the exterior handle. It looked like a heavy-duty outdoor extension cord. It was pulled taut, anchoring the handle to the porch railing. He had tied me in. Whack! 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 The sound was moving now. It was circling the house. He was moving unnaturally fast, trudging through knee-deep snow like it wasn't even there. I ran back to the sliding glass door in the back. I unlocked it and yanked. Nothing. It wouldn't slide. I looked closely at the track. There were wedges of wood jammed into the frame from the outside, and more of that green wire wrapped around the handle, stretching off toward the trellis. I was trapped. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't a robbery. Robbers want to get in. This guy wanted to keep me inside. I grabbed my phone to call 911. No service. The storm must have knocked out the nearest tower. I was completely cut off. Whack! Whack! The sound changed. It was no longer coming from my level. It was coming from above me. He was climbing. I looked up at the vaulted ceiling. The master bedroom was on the 2nd floor, with a balcony that overlooked the living room. The bedroom had a massive triangular window that peeked near the roof. I ran up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. I needed to get high ground. I needed to see where he was. I burst into the bedroom and ran to the window. I screamed. He was already there. Hanging upside down from the roof gutter, staring directly through the glass, was the man. His face was inches from the window. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his beard was fake, just a clump of dirty cotton hanging off his chin by a rubber band. But it was his smile that broke me. He was grinning so wide his eyes were squinted shut. His teeth were stained a deep, violent red. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't yelling threats. He was humming. I could hear it through the glass, muffled but distinct. Silent night. Holy night. He raised the staple gun. Whack! He stapled a string of lights right across the center of the window, blocking my view of his face with a blindingly bright red bulb. He wasn't just trapping me. He was decorating the house. And I was the ornament inside the glass ball. I stumbled back from the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. The red bulb he had just stapled to the glass was pulsing, casting a sick, bloody rhythm into the room. He didn't stop. Thwack! Another staple. Another light. Thwack! He reached into his oversized coat pocket and pulled out a stack of paper. They were Christmas cards. Generic, store-bought cards with pictures of snowy villages and smiling snowmen. He slammed one against the glass. Thwack! He stapled it right over my line of sight. then another, and another. He was sealing me in. He was covering every inch of the clear glass with cheerful holiday cards, blocking out the outside world until all I could see were cartoon reindeer and that blinding red light. "Stop it!" I screamed, grabbing a heavy brass lamp from the bedside table. I swung it at the window, hoping to shatter the glass and knock him off the roof. Crack! The glass didn't shatter. It was double-paned, tempered storm glass. It just spiderwebbed. The man stopped. He lowered his face to the crack I had made. Through the spiderweb fracture, I saw one bloodshot eye widen. He wasn't angry. He looked delighted. The humming stopped. "Naughty," he whispered. His voice sounded wet, like his throat was full of sludge. Suddenly, the lights in the bedroom died. The hallway lights died. The whole house plunged into pitch-black darkness. He had cut the main power. I stood there in the silence, gripping the lamp, breathing hard. Click. It wasn't a light switch. It was the sound of a heavy-duty outdoor plug connecting. In an instant, the world exploded into blinding light. Thousands, literally thousands, of Christmas lights that he had stapled to the outside of the house turned on all at once. Red, green, blue, white. They were so bright they shone through the cards, through the blinds, through the cracks in the glass. The heat from them was instant. The house wasn't just lit up. It was radiating. I was inside a fusion reactor of holiday cheer. Then came the sound. The glass of the sliding balcony door, weakened by the cold and the staples, couldn't take the heat change. Shatter. The balcony door exploded inward. Freezing wind and snow blasted into the room, swirling with the blinding multicolored lights. And he stepped through. He looked even bigger inside the room. The lights draped over his shoulders dragged behind him like a royal cape. He held a strand of heavy C9 bulbs in his hands, pulling it taut. The wire creaked. He didn't run at me. He didn't scream. He just took a step forward, smiling that red-toothed smile, and snapped the wire. Snap! I threw the lamp at him. It hit him square in the chest, but he didn't even flinch. He just kept walking, stepping over the broken glass. I turned and sprinted. I scrambled out of the bedroom and into the hallway. I heard his heavy, wet boots thudding behind me. Thump, thump, thump. "Deck the halls," he shrieked, his voice cracking into a high-pitched laugh. I barely made it to the guest bathroom at the end of the hall. I threw myself inside and slammed the door. I locked it. I threw my weight against it. I wedged my feet against the bathtub. I waited for the impact. I waited for him to kick the door down. But the kick didn't come. Instead, a knock. Bang, bang, bang. Then a pause. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. My blood ran cold. He wasn't trying to break the door down. He was knocking to the rhythm of jingle bells. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. "Go away," I screamed, tears streaming down my face. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. The door frame shook with every hit. Dust fell from the ceiling. He was hitting it hard enough to break bone, but he wouldn't break the rhythm. Then, I heard the scratching. Under the door. I looked down. Heavy green wire was being fed through the gap between the door and the floor. He was feeding the lights into the bathroom. The bulbs slid across the tile floor like glowing bugs. One by one. Red, green, red, green. I kicked them away, backing into the shower stall, curling into a ball. "Please," I begged. "Just take whatever you want." The knocking stopped. The wire stopped moving. For 5 seconds, there was total silence. Then, from outside the house, a new sound cut through the wind. A siren. It was distant at first, then louder, then another. I heard the man in the hallway let out a sound, a disappointed sigh, like a child told that playtime was over. "Time to fly," he whispered. I heard heavy footsteps running away from the door, then the sound of a window shattering in the guest room next door. Then silence. I didn't move. I stayed in that bathtub for 20 minutes, shivering, clutching the shower curtain, until I heard the heavy boots of the police and the voice of a sheriff's deputy calling out. "Sheriff's Department. Is anyone in here?" "I'm here," I screamed. "I'm in the bathroom." When they finally got the door open, the 2 officers looked pale. They didn't look at me at first. They looked at the hallway. They escorted me out, telling me to keep my eyes down, but I looked. I couldn't help it. The hallway wasn't just damaged. It was finished. In the 20 minutes I was hiding, he hadn't just fled. He had wrapped the entire banister, the door frames, and the walls in tinsel and lights. Every single picture frame on the wall had been turned upside down. We got outside, and the officers put me in the back of the cruiser. I looked back at the house. It was horrifying. The entire structure was encased in wire and lights. It looked like a spiderweb made of electricity. It was beautiful, in a sick, twisted way. It was the brightest thing on the mountain. They never caught him. The police found footprints on the roof and tracks leading deep into the national forest, but they vanished about 2 miles out, buried by the fresh snow. They said he was probably a drifter, maybe someone on drugs who had been squatting in the empty cabins nearby. But I know he wasn't just a drifter. Drifters don't move that fast. Drifters don't have that kind of focus. I tried to move on. I went back to school. I moved into an apartment in the city, somewhere with streetlights and neighbors. But yesterday, I was unpacking a box of my stuff that the police had recovered from the cabin. I opened my toiletry bag, the one that had been in the bathroom with me the whole time. The one I had been clutching while I hid in the shower. I unzipped it. Sitting right on top of my toothbrush was a single glass ornament. It was a red bulb, and painted on it, in that same thick black marker, was a smiley face with jagged teeth. I was locked in that room. I was holding the bag. He had put it there before I even went inside. He knew where I was going to hide. He had decorated the hiding spot for me.